Self-care. It's such a deep, layered word, and for me, it's really become the process of getting to know yourself, showing up for yourself over and over again. In creation of the Self-Care Creature podcast, I want to teach you, too, how to have a relationship with yourself. We're going to dive into the psychological and physiological unfoldings of adopting what I love to call a self-care lifestyle. This podcast is here to help you, the stressed out but spiritually minded individual who can feel that wild calling in your heart, who wants to develop self-care rituals to support your daily living, give you the confidence and know-how to live through your intuition and raise your self-worth. You deserve it. You are capable of this. And I want to help you understand how the hell to get there, what it actually means, and how do you actually live it. That's where my intention is with this podcast. The Self-Care Creature podcast, brought to you by me, your host, Courtney Klopp. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to be bringing you a very loving, tough love episode. I know it will be well received because I'm always the kind of person that can use a little bit of tough love. I just poured myself a hot cup of chamomile tea with a little bit of honey in it. I've been dreaming about this cup of tea for a few days. I've been wanting to sip it at night before I go to bed, and then I just get too tired when I create my little nest, that I call it, of pillows in my bed, and it hasn't been happening. So pull up some tea, pull up a notebook if you like. Maybe you're driving or whatever you're doing, Just take a moment to get centered. Maybe take a deep breath. Today comes to you from all of these questions I'm constantly getting about how to feel better in general. How do I feel better? How do I feel less stressed? How do I handle my anxiety? How do I feel less depressed? All of these questions constantly. And I used to be, just to give you a little background, I identified very deeply with depression growing up most of my life. And then, I found fitness and I thought that was the answer. And then I ended up finding food and I thought that was the answer, and just kind of went on all of these roller coasters. There's no one answer, just so you know. And after I thought that I found all these answers a couple years ago, I found myself in a place of debilitating anxiety, which was weird for me. I had never really experienced anxiety. I didn't understand what that meant. I got super anxious feeling about even leaving the house and making all these small decisions. And it was really challenging. And so I want you to know that I'm coming from a place where I feel like I have some experience, especially be so deeply identifying with depression growing up. And so here we go. I have got some tips for you today. When people send me this question, my number one question for you is, how are you showing up for yourself? Or are you showing up for yourself at all in your daily living? And this is an honest question. We have to be honest with ourselves in order to actually heal and in order to make effective change, lasting change in our life. So, are you showing up for yourself at all? And I don't want you to make excuses. Notice if you're getting defensive right away. That's something to notice. But to be completely honest, are you waking up in the morning? Are you rushing out of bed, getting your teeth brushed, and making breakfast, running out the door, working all day, running errands all day, coming home to, feel completely exhausted, or maybe you spend time with a partner or family and to ultimately not have any time for yourself? Maybe time for yourself at the end of the day tends to be looking like watching TV, which can be great. I don't hate TV, you guys. It can be a great tool, but it's also designed to suck you in, and it takes you outside of yourself, continues to drain you a little bit more. And the goal of feeling better is, what can we add? How can we support ourselves? Because I don't want to say add because, that's a stress trigger. What can I add to my life? I already have so much stuff going on. How can you support yourself? Does that feel better? It feels better when I say it. How can you support yourself? And oftentimes, I'm all about as little as 30 seconds a day. I was telling a mom recently, it can be as simple as really taking a moment to look yourself in the eye and take a breath while you're brushing your teeth. That's not taking a separate time out of your day. But we do have to cultivate this awareness. And, when you're, I'm going to try to stop saying so much. As you are getting ready in your day, start by just trying to be with yourself a little bit more. Notice if you have a goal to just be with yourself and breathe, you're going to notice that your overactive, stressed out mind is going to try to run the show. It's going to be constantly reminding you of all of the things you have to do. It's going to tell you that this little exercise I gave you to do is stupid and doesn't work. And you have to cultivate this relationship with yourself. We do not live in a world that is encouraged to cultivate this relationship. It's everything in our world is pulling us outside of ourselves. And that is why we are adapting this self-care lifestyle, so that we can shift the paradigm and really start to learn how to support each other. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be loved. We want to feel like we belong, and we need support in those endeavors. So be honest with yourself. Are you showing up for yourself at all? And if not, how can you support yourself even just a tiny bit? Next is, let's look at your stress cycles. What do you have going on in your life, and how do you react to it? Because we oftentimes get into these stress cycles and these stress patterns. And yes, I know talking about stress, thinking about stress is really freaking stressful. But maybe take a pause and take another deep breath and remind yourself, hey, I'm not here to stress myself out more. I'm here to learn how to support myself through this stress. And I have to be able to look at stress objectively in order to go through this, in order to form this healing, in order to understand myself better and to develop any type of self-care lifestyle. Oftentimes we get really stressed out for whatever various reasons in our life. We decide to indulge in activities that, pull us outside of ourselves even more, because whether or not they're fun in the moment, or they numb us out, or they taste really good, or whatever it may be. And then they result in not feeling very good. And then we go through that cycle of beating ourselves up. And then we get some rest or whatever. We start to feel okay again until the stress triggers again, and the cycle starts all over again. So many of us live our entire lives like this. I know I did for so long, for much of my adult life. Well, I'm 29, most of my 20s, I'll say. So, a part of identifying your stress cycles and your triggers and kind of like this pattern that you fall into, without being so hard about it, you're just noticing, just simply noticing. And you're showing up for compassion and understanding for where you are at. And I often it helps me to look at things objectively. If you even write down this stress cycle, okay, you have all this shit going on in your life. Okay, this is what you end up doing at the end of every single day. This is how it ends up making you feel. This is where it repeats itself. Think of it like a friend. What if you write all that down, you slide it across the table to your friend, and now you're looking at it. What if a friend gave you all of these things? You could probably look at it just a little bit easier and be like, no wonder, girl, you got all this shit going on. You're trying to support yourself with all these other outlets that aren't necessarily supporting you in the way that you actually more deeply and authentically desire. And here's the pattern that it's forming. That's basically the process that I do with so many of my clients. And it is possible to do it with yourself. And in this space is where you can start to form more compassion for yourself and more understanding. And just a disclaimer, it's probably going to hurt. There's going to be some shock. That it could be accompanied with guilt or shame, because you realize it and you're in it. You're in the thick of it. When you're in the thick of it and you're living that life it's hard to see it objectively. That's why you're taking the time to write it down and be able to see it from a different perspective when you're not in it, when you are feeling in a stable spot, to be able to look at your stress cycles. And then you start to form this compassion. And when you start showing up for yourself and you have this compassion and this understanding, at least me personally, I end up crying a lot. And I've come to learn now in my life that when I cry, it's because I've hit something deeper and I'm healing something, I'm shedding something. So I really believe that crying is a gift to being human, and it's a gift to helping us understand ourselves and our emotions better. And being somebody that was taught as a child that anytime I cried, I was upsetting somebody else, and I learned how to turn those feelings off like a faucet, I am very proud and I feel very good about cultivating the emotion of crying a little bit better. I mean, I'm still working on it. I definitely have those thick walls up in that faucet area, whatever metaphor I have going on right now. So just being compassionate, allowing yourself to cry. It's okay to cry. And you can comfort yourself. You can tell a partner like, hey, I'm trying to recognize these stress cycles. I want to show up for myself more. And it can feel defeating. It can feel hard. It's going to be challenging to face some of this stuff. And I just need comfort. I don't need you to try and make me feel better. I don't need you to reassure me that everything's okay. I just need you to hold space for me to let me cry. And whether you have a partner, friends, family, or you're just telling yourself that. To be completely honest, I have to tell myself that a lot when I cry. I often have to tell myself, you just let it out. Nobody else is here. It's okay. And I take some deep breaths and I just let myself go. Because immediately all the thoughts creep in. You sound like a crazy person. What are you crying about? You just suck it up. It'll be fine. You don't have to cry. Like, those are all of the thoughts that wash through my head when the tears start coming. And gratefully, I've been working with trying to breathe a little bit more and allowing myself to really experience this process. And I do have a YouTube video. I believe it's my journey through the emotion of crying that you can Google. Just my name is my YouTube channel, Courtney Klopp. So it is my most watched YouTube video. So I know that this resonates with a lot of people. And no matter where you're at or how you're feeling in it, I know it was very comforting for me to know that I wasn't alone, and I want to assure you that you are not alone either. So looking at those stress cycles and forming ways to be more compassionate and understanding with yourself, I want you to remember that you are always doing your best with the tools you've been given. And that comes from research that I don't have off the top of my head to cite to you, but definitely Brené Brown. I've heard this in a lot of other areas as well, but praise Brené. I love Brené. You are always doing your best with the tools you've been given. And that can be really hard to recognize. But when you recognize this, it becomes a lot easier to be understanding and be compassionate with yourself instead of berating yourself. And so I just specifically remember a friend of mine once telling me, I just know that I'm not doing my best, and that bothers me. I feel sad about it. I just know I could be doing better, I think is what they said. And I had to say, hold the phone. That is bullshit. Let's take a look back at the stress cycles that you are going through, and you tell me, looking at what is going on in your life right now, that you are not doing the best you can with the tools you've been given. You might want better for yourself. You might want something different. That's called growing and changing and wanting a shift, maybe having a little awakening, drawing in that awareness, knowing that you can change. But knowing that you can change does not mean that you are not doing your best. You are doing your best at any given moment. And I read this book called The 4 Agreements, and that is one of the agreements, is knowing that I'd have to look it up. I didn't look it up before I started this podcast, but that one of those steps is that I am doing my best. And I had these 4 agreements. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now, but I remember I had them on my bulletin board in my office. And every time that I got in some kind of stress cycle, we'll say, whether that was an argument or an outside something with family or just a shame spiral, whatever the stress may be, I would go into my room and I would look at these 4 agreements. And I just remember so much. I am doing my best. And really coming to truly deeply believe that within yourself. And if you don't, my recommendation, as always, write it down, reread the statements, call bullshit on yourself, and rewrite them with a loving state, or like rewrite the statement more lovingly and help yourself understand where you are coming from that keeps you from believing that. Oftentimes, most times when we're looking at triggers and we're looking at beliefs, we have to go back to our childhoods because that is where the beliefs are formed. Our beliefs are formed traditionally, or not traditionally, but through research, it's been shown that our belief system is formed between the ages of 0 and about 8 years old, possibly a little bit older. But we learn what we are surrounded by. And I know for me, up until I was 7 years old, my life was fucking chaotic. I went to live with my grandparents when I was 7 years old, and I don't even hardly remember so much of my childhood because it was so stressful before that time. And so when I have to think back on what did I learn, what was I surrounded by, what was I taught during those young ages, I mean, it's another thing that you have to support yourself in, taking a breath and getting real and reminding yourself that you are here for you, bringing that compassionate understanding for yourself. So the last thing that I want to leave you with is this question. What does it feel like to be you? What does it feel like to be you? I think that's a great question to start with, showing up for yourself and just wanting to get to know yourself better and just getting curious. What does it feel like to be Courtney today? What does it feel like to be Courtney Klopp? Which it feels, and there I go. You laugh at it and then you have to take a breath and really think about it for a moment, because there is only one you in this entire world of billions of people, which is crazy sauce, but it's real. Literally, there's only one you in this entire universe. I mean, wouldn't it be crazy if we knew that there was one other person out there in the world that was also us, and it was like our mission to go out there and find our twin in life, or, we had to find this other person. That's just not the way it is. That would be a whole nother wild life. There's only one you. And get ready for this next one. You might have to take a breath. You're never going to live this day again. Whoa, I know, I'm getting deep, but that's the real shit, yo. That's the real shit. You're never going to live this day again. Nobody else in the world is you, and you are not going to live this day right now again. So do you want to be present? Are you trying to collect the little moments to savor the soft spots? Are you trying to be here right now? Not to take it there. But seriously, breathe into that space. It's a big one. And a lot of people get terrified of this, get terrified of death. I know so many people that are just terrified, but I believe that death is our absolute greatest teacher. And that when we can accept death and when we can accept our impermanence here on this earth, it forces us to step up and live a more intentional life. Because nobody wants to be like, yeah, I'm never going to live this day again, so I'm just going to blow it. At least, I mean, I'd love feedback. Feel free to ask me questions, slide into my DMs or whatever. I'd love to hear what you think on this topic. But for me, when I hear this, you're never living this day again. I am 29 years old. It's the middle of fall. I am never going to live this day again. I want to be open. I want to be curious. I want to be receptive. I want to notice the little things. I want to make sure that I say thank you. I want to make sure I look somebody in the eyes. I want to make sure I look myself in the eyes and be present today. And when you're able to do all of that, when you can face that you are the only you on the planet, and that you're never going to live this day again, and that you are impermanent, and that's okay. Impermanent as a human, not as a spirit, but I'll do a spirit episode in another time. All of these things allow you to get grateful. And gratitude is like the number one thing people say you need in life to be able to feel connected and to allow your heart and your love and your mind to grow more open and more soft and more understanding and more compassionate. Everybody, like if you go and you look at like top successful entrepreneurs or business people or just like top successful anybody, gratitude's going to be in there. What are you grateful for? And I feel like I need to create some kind of freebie or challenge for you guys for this about getting grateful, because I definitely remember in the beginning when it was in 2016, I have a bizarre memory like that. But in 2016, I remember specifically really trying to start with a gratitude practice and feeling like I had close to nothing to think about every day that was new. And the one thing that I held on to was traveling, that I had just gotten back from within the year, had just gotten back from my 9-month excursions. And I just remember the feeling of gratitude of taking a hot shower and having an ample water supply, because traveling down through Mexico, most of those places just have giant water stores on the top of the building or the top of the house, and you're just getting whatever's coming through the faucet and whatever the quote unquote room temp or just average temp of the day is, the weather temp of that day. And yeah, that's a tropical climate, but that doesn't mean the water's hot. And so that feeling, just even if you can think of one thing that you are truly grateful for, and for me, that hot water, that ample water supply, having a shower back in the States, that thinking of that and being able to feel that gratitude deeply in my heart, I want you to cultivate that feeling. And even if you can only think of that one thing over and over again, I promise you, keep showing up. It's going to grow. And it can be as little and tiny and minuscule or as big as you want it to be. Your gratitudes are yours. And if you feel any judgment about them, remember that's only coming from you. And to just practice it again and again. Here are some things I'm just going to go off the top of my head right now, because I feel like I've gotten decent at this. I feel so grateful to have a bed to sleep in. I feel so grateful to have a roof over my head. I feel so grateful to have a central heating system in my house. Even if I try to complain sometimes about how cold it gets, I am so grateful that I have heat that comes out of the walls. I am so grateful for these clothes on my back. I am so grateful for my body that does so much for me every single day. I am grateful for my friends. I am grateful for my family. I am grateful to have a car. I am grateful to have money to put into my car to be able to drive it. I'm grateful for a job. I'm grateful for my community. I think you guys get the idea. Every little thing. Just write it down. I highly recommend either writing down your gratitudes right before you wake up in the morning or right before you go to bed. One new thing I've been trying to do is when I get up in the morning to speak aloud, like a few things I am grateful for so that I can start feeling it in my heart. And even though this next one is a little more challenging for me, at the end of the day, I'm really striving to remind myself what do I feel accomplished about today? What did I get done? What can I celebrate? And like I said, it's funny that like they go so hand in hand, and I find that gratitude comes so easy. But when I'm like, what did I accomplish today? I'm like, oh, that feels weird. But when I take the time to realize I got out of bed today, I cleaned my room today, I ate some food today, on top of all the other things you may or may not have done, keep it to the basics. Let yourself feel good about living this day, because you're never going to live this day again. And all of this just comes back to cultivating a better relationship with yourself. That's the ultimate goal, because when you are able to cultivate a better relationship with yourself without any other effort, really, you're naturally going to cultivate a better relationship with others, because we are human and we're all going through this same human experience. We all have our shit. You don't know what somebody else has been through. You don't know what somebody else's childhood was like. You don't know what kind of stressors they might be going through. You don't know what their family relationships are like. You cannot make assumptions. We often make assumptions about people, and we just can't do that. You know the saying, assumptions make an ass out of you and me, or assuming makes an ass out of you and me. I love that one. I'm such a sucker for things like that. But you're cultivating this relationship with yourself, and in turn, you're changing the relationship you have with others. And my favorite thing to think about when it comes to cultivating a relationship with yourself is old age. My grandmother is the closest person to my heart. And I just think of the little ways, bless her, that she does or doesn't really have a relationship with herself. And she didn't really grow up in an era that encouraged it by any means. She was just doing what she needed to do to get by. And we're finally living in a world today, in modern day 2019, 2020, where, we have the choice now. We can consciously make a decision to cultivate a relationship with ourselves, and people are starting to change the stigma and shift the paradigm. But I think about my grandmother and how she's an inspiration for me, but I'm not just going to spotlight her the whole time, especially because I know she'll be listening. Hi, love you. But I think about old age, and how do you want to have a relationship with yourself when you're older? Do you want to be a confident, badass granny? Or are you going to be shy? Are you going to be still, plucking hairs on your chin? I mean, I don't even know. I don't think I'm giving great examples here necessarily. But think about who you are in old age and having a relationship with yourself. I know that when I am older, that I am going to want to be stable and sound in my mind and in my relationship with myself. And I think it's going to be fun, even like I do now, to just sit back and watch the way people live their lives and see the way the world has changed and continues to change. And as much as I am trying to cultivate this presence now while I have my youth and I have all of these great things to do and this able body, I want to be able to cultivate that relationship with myself throughout my entire life. And it starts now. It really does, because the older you get, the more ingrained we get with these habits. And that's why I think that the system of, work your ass off and then go play when you retire and, you've earned it, I think it's complete bullshit, because you're literally brainwashing yourself. Not on purpose in the bad way, but it's literally you're conditioning yourself to be a worker. You're working really hard. And how do you do that for 40, 60 plus years, and then all of a sudden you don't have anything else to do? I feel like the only thing that would do for me is make me look back at my life and wish that I had spent more time with the people that I cared about, spent more intentional time on the daily. Because you're never going to live this day again, right? It's like you're never gonna live those 60 or 40 years again. You can be present in the midst of working. You can be present in the midst of being busy. There are plenty of people out there that are having a good time in the midst of heartbreak. It's possible to have these feelings exist at the same time. And I like this idea of surrounding yourself by people that do live that type of life. I was recently just looking at this woman online that I've been following for years, and she recently had a baby, and she was like, I took my baby to my workshop with me, and I thought that it was, people were asking me, how could you do that? You really think you're going to work and be a mom at the exact same time? You don't think it's going to be distracting? All this stuff. And she was like, I'm sick and tired of thinking that I have to separate myself from being a mother and being able to being a mother and being a businesswoman. And I just thought that was really admirable. And we can go out and find these people in the world that relate to us. Like, I don't relate to her that much because I'm not a mom and I don't even know if I want kids at this point. So go out and find what works for you. But if you need somebody that, if you are a busy working mom, go find busy working moms that are also cultivating time for themselves and learning how to take space. It's a family endeavor. You have to get other people involved. It's not just we don't do anything on our own. It's cultivating community. It's cultivating understanding. It's cultivating connection. Can I say cultivate anymore? Okay. I really hope this episode resonated with you. As always, I have my infamous Shift Your Shit guide. That is the place I recommend for everybody when you want to start getting to know yourself better. It's literally the steps that I've taken with my clients to start changing this relationship they have with themselves. You've got the questions now within this episode that I ask my clients to look at for their lives. Now go download that free guide and go through those steps and start implementing them with this compassionate understanding for your stress cycles that you have now cultivated for yourself within this episode. Please feel free to give me any feedback. I love hearing from you. If you're listening, take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, reach out to me. I love chatting with you in my DMs. And in the meantime, until we meet again, take care of yourself. Only you can take care of yourself. Nobody else knows what it's like to be you. So take a deep breath, look yourself in the eye, cultivate some gratitude, and I will talk to you soon. All right, bye. I just want to take a quick moment to sincerely thank you for tuning in today. It really means the world to me that you are here supporting me, listening to what I have to say, and I sincerely hope that it finds you well and helps you wherever you're at in your life. And if you're ever wondering what other kind of stuff I have to offer you, you can check out my free resources or my paid offerings, both available on my website, www.selfcarecreature.com. And if you're looking for another simple and free way to support my business, because woo, small business, you can simply leave a review for the podcast, or even easier, take a screenshot right now and post it and tag me on Instagram. That is the easiest way, and it just builds community, builds connection. I will be able to see it and connect with you then. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Thanks for being here. Cheers.